on this computer. Okay, you might have a little thing that says that you acknowledge on your screen that we're recording. Is that correct?
Got it.
Okay,
Yep. Absolutely.
cool. So, we're obviously recording. And so I'm Sarah from Align with Sarah, and I'm talking with Catie from Conscious Catie, her YouTube channel. We are both really focused on the personal development and sharing our story, sharing our journey, and I guess our wisdom. And we've just talked for a moment about all my excitement about the content that she shares. And we're going to have a little bit of this conversation about her connection with that Akashic record keeping, which I think is such an important concept. And today's or this month's theme of infinity. And and do you want to talk for a minute about your YouTube channel? And then we can talk about the Akashic records, if that sounds good.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm really just getting started slowly but surely in stepping into the path that feels most aligned to my heart, that I have been exploring this realm of spirituality and personal growth, and life has taken me in so many incredible adventures that my own path has been one of really following my intuition where it takes me across the globe, and within my own inner world, like most importantly. So, part of this has been starting to share a little bit about my story, about my experience of just trusting the heart, following my intuition, and where that's guiding me. So I'm just starting, to share little bits and finding my way to really fully embody this creative process. So it's like such a pleasure to connect in this space and connect to other beings who are in this process as well. So yeah, I love
Yeah,
it. Thanks for having me.
yeah, I think the slowly but surely is so important because I think unless somebody is out there um, not doing like cat videos or like like reprocessed content that has a lot of views, whatever. I think that like genuine, that like authentic message, the authentic followers, I feel like it's a lot more difficult than people realize, and especially on this platform of YouTube. I think, and I'm included, where I feel super burned out. So I will, get on YouTube Shorts, and then it's like, and next thing I know, it's a half hour later. And I want to shut off my brain. And, then there's this whole other part of my day and week and, all of this where I'm actively seeking information. And I think that, um, overall the audience of YouTube, I feel like a good majority of the people are out there for like the shut off piece. And people that like you and I who have that the genuine hope of just like sliding in there and just being like, well, what about this? Like, what about this short? Like, what about this thought? Like, just maybe. I think it is quite a challenge. And I love that you were saying like slowly but surely. And I have my little saying is slowly, slowly, and with a lot of love. It's coming together. It's coming together. And more. And I think what keeps my mindset where it needs to be is the thought of plant the seed. Just plant the seed, and maybe it's going to grow today. Maybe it's going to grow tomorrow. Maybe someone will become curious, or someone will hit the blooming point or the breaking point, and remember something that was shared. And so yeah, my hat is off to you and all of the other little YouTubers out there that are genuinely moving forward with authentic, audiences and authentic content. So thank you for all of your effort with that.
It's really about the authenticity. And I love that you're
Yeah.
talking about that seed of intention. And that's really been such a theme of my journey too. It's like first of all, recognizing that when we put ourselves out there in any way, in any new experience, like we're pushing the comfort zone. So just for me, the challenge of putting myself in front of a camera and making sure that where I'm coming from is from that pure place. Like I'm creating because I'm coming from a place of abundance, of an overflow. This is what I want to share. And while battling, working with this like that comfort zone of how am I showing up? Um, Making sure like where is this coming from? That's always the most important thing, because that is the seed that you're planting with anything that we like put out into the world, whether that's a conversation, a video, whatever it is, that is what's going to grow. So
Yep.
I love that like metaphor of the seed that you use. I use it all the time too, and it just helps like bring us back to center. Where are we grounding from?
Yep. Yep. So we mentioned that Akashic Records, and that is, that does feed into like where are we coming from, where are we going? And I'm curious about your experience with Akashic Records. So is it something like that you um had, this, I'm imagining, my own sort of path where I was watching something on Gaia.com, and or maybe it was like George Norrie or something, I don't remember, but there was somebody being interviewed and they were like, they said something about it was a person that practiced Akashic reading. And I was like, I have never even heard of this. And it had brought in, well, once I Googled it and, searched up this person's name and everything, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, I always believed in this. Like, I believed in this feeling of, um, like, there's a reason why, but then like I didn't kind of understand like the Akashic record keeping kind of um finish that thought for me. Like I understand why, and it's kind of like I really just picture like flipping through the file cabinet and being like, oh, okay, well, um all of this back here, like file cabinet number 1, 2, and 3, have kind of been part of this learning journey that I signed up for. And file cabinet ahead of me, 3, 4, and 5, and 10 and 12, um, they're as full as I want them to be, or they're as empty as I want them to be. Like I can create that. I can
Mm.
change that. Or I can just keep allowing, untethered to my own experiences. And it just became so consoling, I think is the word that I want to use. And it kind of gave me this permission that I have to take time. I have to have an intention. I have to kind of know where I'm going. I have to be authentic in it. And I think that's really where that extra layer of authenticity comes from, because I think the more genuine I show up and I'm just like, you know what, this thing is happening and it's really crappy, but this is where I'm not going to get into the rabbit hole of crappy. I'm going to get into the rabbit hole of, the other direction. How is this helping me? What am I supposed to learn? Pain means stop doing this. Like, where does this hurt? Why does this hurt? Is it my own perception? Is it, this past trauma that is, these like the lenses that I'm looking through? Is there an emotion that's taking over? Where before I would kind of just feel like the like martyrdom thing, where it's really just like, oh, okay, if I suffer a little bit more, then I'll be a better person. And I don't believe in that anymore. And that Akashic record uh, concept really shifted everything for me. So I just talked forever. I'm going to stop talking so you could share your thoughts on that and how you got introduced to it and how you incorporate that in your work.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. It's taking me on so many like tangents that I want to bring in. And I think just the fact that it's tied to the theme of infinity is so resonant right now. Because to me, the way that I actually besides like working with different spiritual teachers and kind of understanding the Akashic records in this symbolic way that you're kind of describing, almost like this library of all of our lives and past lives, parallel lives, all of these other adventures of our soul essence. The way that I started to really work with my own awareness of this was when I started really connecting to the elements, to understanding ourselves as this embodiment of nature. And, you know, in the West, we are used to understanding, you know, the four elements: air, earth, fire, and water. And in the East, where I'm actually living in India right now, the fifth element is the ether, or Akash. It's known as Akash, and that's where Akashic records come in. And this is the most subtle element that actually gives rise to all of the other elements and everything that's manifest in physical form. So beneath all of these things that we can touch, feel, taste, is this ether, this subtlest element from which everything can emerge. And in this subtlest realm is all of the information that ever has been, is, or ever was. And it's this awareness to me of how we are connected in an infinite universe to everything. We are in an energetic world, so everything that we might think is so solid and distinct actually is completely interconnected through, you know, and I see it as like this is the weavings, the web, the ether that connects everything, past, present, and future. In a spiritual reality, there really is only the now. It's just an ever-evolving, changing now moment. So how working with this understanding of the ether, of the Akashic records, is, to me, drawing us back into like this center point of ourselves from which infinite realities can emerge, can create. And I guess what's kind of coming through now about this for this concept of our infinity, our infinite connection, is that from this now moment, we can connect to the possibilities that are here for us, that, you know, even in from an Akashic record, from like a understanding that we have more access to other lives, other information that's relevant to this life in the here and now, that all of our answers really exist in the field that is here. And the more still we can get, the more we can connect to the space around us, the more that we can let go of the tension of the mind that we have to figure everything out, and say that it's all already here, it's all already written, and that our highest expression of life is contained in the ether. It's not something that we have to control and figure, that kind of part of the ego that kind of keeps us in these loops of suffering and struggling with reality. It's like, actually, it's all here, it's all happening, and we can like relax and start to tune into the wisdom that's within and around us. And that's kind of what the ether means to me. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it made sense to me. And it brought up this thought of how the thought of the cycle of tide in Chinese medicine, it begins with the lung and the large intestine, which is sometimes it's called the air element, sometimes it's called the metal element. And I just wrote a little note here to look into that. And I can't help but wonder if it also represents the ether, and with everything beginning in that cycle of the the chi moving through the body in a regular pattern is the cycle of tide, and it begins with that the metal element. And I can't help but put that together with your thought of that everything begins with the ether. And I think it might be, that underlying theme also in Chinese medicine, where there it might be beginning with that ether and whatever we call that element in English. It's never a perfect translation, I think, when we go from one language to another. And I think when we also go from, you know, 5,000 years ago, when this is coming uh, into practice as far as research can go back, um, where there's not going to be the same story, there's not going to be the same words, there's not going to be the same whatever. So that has my wheels turning about the ether being that motivation of what happens first. This is coming from the ether, and we always have that choice of and also connecting. We only know what we know. And I love the Dalai Lama. One of his um, consistent things that he will talk about when offering some kind of talk or presentation, where he says, I know nothing, but I've had these experiences and I've learned these lessons. So his mind is so open. And I think it's such a great example of that reminder of like, yeah, I only know what I know. I only look at this with, if I don't look at this consciously with an open mind, I'm going to just see, the past and then living in that cycle, just, you know, no pain, no gain, or, well, just another day, just another dollar, where it's really not um, open to anything new. It's just, we just know what we know. And until we recognize, like, oh, yeah, I only know what I know, I think it's time to learn something new. I think it's time to be connected to something new. And also, what you were talking about, it reminded me of the very consistent concept of the power of our now, where everything that has ever happened to even create the person that we are, the people that have come together for generations and generations and generations, it's mind blowing to think that the intention that came into existence for me to be here, and that the power of now, my experience right now is connected to all of those ancestors, and then anything that comes after me and anything that I engage in. And I think for me that dials it up, where even today's the day I'm not feeling that great, but it's really like, okay, well, now is the time to show up, and I'm just going to be in this place of where I am, and I'm going to trust that, everything is going to be fine, everything is going to go smoothly. And I think when we are really connected to and like holding on tightly to, oh, but I have this thing, and oh, this is going to be so hard, and oh, it's got computer stuff in it, and I'm so bad at computers, and like, I think there's um one thought of, kind of like taking it lightly and making a joke out of it. Oh, like, the gremlins are in the computer and this and that. Or, the woe is me, I can't believe I'm sick and I have this thing to do. And like, I feel like there's all these choices we have, and then how we arrive, and like what you were kind of saying, like what it is that we like pick off that tree of the ether to like nourish us and to move forward with. Um, it's all our choice. It's all our choice. And it's whether we want to appreciate all of this behind us, or, give value to the things in front of us. Um, I feel like it can feel daunting, or it can feel like total freedom. But it is all our choice. And I think it is also empowering. But again, it can feel very overwhelming to people to think of all the things that are, it's up to me in this moment. And I think when we're in those moments, that the part of my practice that I hold that I love so much is connecting to the work that Dr. Bradley Nelson put together, I don't know, like 20 something years ago with his emotion code and body code and emotions that drive us and like create our perspective. Dr. Joe Dispenza is also very adamant about the bad day, the bad moment that can lead to the bad day, that can lead to the mood, and then the trait. And then that is defining us. You know, we step on the Lego in the morning. That's usually my example. And then the next thing we know, like the dog is barfing and the kids are late for school. And like, you know, I forgot to put the clothes in the dryer. And we don't take a moment to recognize how much that can affect us and how we can just keep, you know, carrying it around. And the first person we see at work are like, you won't believe it. This whole, and we're growing that. And that's what we have chosen from the ether. And I feel like if having the other perspective of like, I stepped on this Lego, this is the universe challenging me, or, you know, this is the universe waking me up. This is the universe, you know, delivering this Lego. Like maybe I needed to activate that part of my foot for reflexology, or like, you know, there could be so
Mm.
many other things. But it is, especially, you know, here in the US, um, I feel like it's our culture. Like what happens at the water cooler? We gossip, we complain, you know, nobody is, I don't think there's it's mainstream to be motivating each other. And I think that comes from just holding on to those negative experiences and allowing them to kind of take over. I feel like there can be an addiction to that where, you know, this is how I get attention. This is how, um, I I get things sometimes. People complain enough and they'll get like, you know, free lunch or free this or free that. And it becomes this personal reality that takes a lot of effort to let go of. And I think the thing I love talking about is that breaking point. um, it sounds so negative to call it the breaking point, but I think it's like our greatness from inside just like can't take it anymore. I think that it's a little bit of like that Akoshic record keeping where it's really just like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to, are you aware that you're even doing this? Like, are you, you know, how much of your subconscious mind is just on like you know, what do I say? Like the straight and the narrow, where it's not expanding at all. We're just, you know, reliving that same moment of stepping on the Lego and the dog is barfing and the clothes weren't ready. And where I kind of lost my train of thought here because I was just like, where the heck am I going? But that breaking point is also the blooming point. And I think when we get so uncomfortable, that Anise Nin quote of like that bud is bound so tightly and it's so uncomfortable that there's nothing left to do but bloom. It's so uncomfortable that it just can't be a bud anymore and it has to bloom. And I think the breaking point is the blooming point. I think it's our greatness that is like, you know, like Sarah, you're worth so much more than this, you know, just no more this, no more that. And I feel like when we get to that, what I see, you know, a lot of people getting to that breaking point where they're seeking the alternative healing. Um, I think it is this part also of like the slate is clean. You know, they've tried all this other stuff and it's not helping. You know, we keep going for or I like to work with people with chronic pain. And I work with people that, you know, they've been spending 10 years of their life getting blood work, getting x-rays, getting MRIs. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with my shoulder. There's nothing wrong with my shoulder where the, you know, anatomy looks good, blood work looks good, physical therapy doesn't, you know, helps or doesn't help, or if it helps for a short amount of time. And when we look at the emotional piece of it all, of like, are you walking through life like bearing a cross? You know, like what are the words that are kind of confining you? And that to me, that is this like aha moment for people of like, oh yeah, well, you know, I was having this emotional thing going on in my life. And then my shoulder started hurting. or this, that, the other thing, where we have the breaking point of the pain showing up, but then we also have the breaking point of like, I've totally exhausted all of my resources. Nothing is making sense. And I think that's when people turn to the alternative healing. And I think, I'm wondering about if this is also the case in your practice, where I feel so consistently that people are so relieved. And I think they have these instincts inside of them that it's about more than just like, I can't do this type of thing. And when they connect to the more, the concept of ether, or the concept of an Akashic record, or the concept of any form of alternative healing, it takes effort from the person. It takes, effort, I feel like facilitating from the practitioner. But I think consistently, if anything, I think people find this relief of mind, and then the other stuff follows. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that.
Mm. Yeah, as you're speaking, I'm just like getting this visual of these things that we attach to, that we hold on to, these attachments of the mind, like you're saying, as you're going through the day, it's like holding these heavy weights of like, this is overwhelming, all these thoughts that we get attached to, of thinking why something is happening. But as you mentioned, everything that has brought us to this present moment now is so beyond our capacity to even comprehend with our brain. So when the Dalai Lama says, I know nothing, is the more that we go beyond our like limited view to see we have such an infinitesimal ability to really comprehend everything, and that can be so liberating. So I feel that this is all about bringing back this liberation, that I don't need to know why everything is necessarily happening, to connect to this awareness inside of me that's inherent in my being, that's inherent in existence, that what is here to push me forward, because consciousness is always changing. And I heard this recently, which I absolutely loved, that the ego is fighting against something or fighting for something. So when we notice that in ourselves, that's just an innate part of being human, that we're trying to figure things out. That's part of the brain, fighting against this stubbed toe, this dog barfing, these things that we think should happen a different way. It's really just the thinking that it should happen a different way that keeps us in these cycles, in these patterns. And when I think of tapping into the power of everything being here for us, that is our access to the infinite potential to move us in the direction of what we really intend to experience, what our soul is here to learn and to ground, and how to enjoy, be with life more and more fully. It's like, do you enjoy this extra suffering that we do with when the dog barfs, or do we have an opportunity to like laugh at this, or just to lighten our own energy so that we can actually receive, through our intuitive awareness, how can this be serving me? Where is this guiding me? I think it's just like a lightening, a letting go of some of these things that we attach to in our mind, or what we're telling ourselves is this story, or that this is bad, when we can just like let go of some of the mind things. And I know let go is like, can be a difficult thing to work with, but when we can like lighten our own experience, we can just lighten up our even concept that we know, to there is an there's infinite information here that could be guiding me to exactly what I want. Like this
Yeah.
is exactly the case to open up like infinity, an infinite possibility. But because I've been, in these cycles for so long, it feels constricted. So
Hmm.
that's like the infinite and the infinite in possibility and ether to me, how that comes back.
Yeah. And the what you had said, everything you say, it's like, oh yeah, I want to talk about this too. I want to talk about this too. And I don't want to keep you forever, but I do want to this last thing that showed up is actually like the first thing on my notes here about some of the content on the newer content on your YouTube channel is about setting the intention and connecting to like that frequency, that vibration, that like thing that you want in the ether. But then I feel like there's a very confusing piece of this when I work with people to do a vision board. And when I'm doing my own vision boards, which are over here, where when we tell the story, it's not the only story. We have to like keep in mind that it's like the concept that we want and what you have said about like the thing on the other side. Like after I make this amount of money, like how is that going to make me feel? What am I going to do with it? And it's not necessarily there is a value in this. I'm a business major, like with my certificate and all of this. So I understand like, okay, if I want to make this amount of money, I can't just like sit in the corner of my room on my pillow and like imagine it like just showing up because I feel like yes, that can work, I guess, but it's also like getting out there and like, do you have downloadables? Do you have a stream of passive income? How many clients is this per week? Or, how many calls do you have to make? I feel like there's this activity piece that ties in where if you're only telling the story that like I'm really going to meditate on this and it's just going to like show up, then I guess that's a really great intention, but I think we should tell more than just that story. I think there's this like active piece, and then from now, this is my intention, this is my action, this is the outcome that I want, and this is how I'm going to feel about it. Where it's not just having a vision board with like these stacks of $100 bills. That's great, but what does that mean? Like what? And Lisa Powers talks a lot about. She doesn't even call them vision boards; she calls them vibration boards, because her thought is to put the words and the pictures on the vision board, vibration board, that pair with the vibration, the feeling that you want to have when you get the thing that you want. So it's not about the money, it's about the vibration of feeling relief, feeling support, feeling like you have choices, feeling like you can provide for your family, feeling like you can enjoy a vacation, without the stress of this, that, the other thing. And I guess maybe that'll be the last thing that we talk about, unless you say something. And I'm like, yeah, let's talk about that too. But yeah, so just to touch in a little bit about like that vision board and that intention, or um, how your advice on how to connect with the thing that we want. And um, yeah.
As you're speaking, I'm like seeing this wave. And it's like, to me, everything is vibration. So the way that I feel it is that we want to ride that vibration of what we want. And it's not about this destination, it's actually a feeling that we want to experience in life. So the more that we can ride that vibrational wave, and that's going to look different than what we expect a lot of the times. But say, we have some goal for our career that we want to um, manifest, that if that the journey is to connect to why do you want to experience that in your career. What is it that, it's not really the money, it's the feeling of freedom that you know get by having that, is that feeling, it's that vibration that we embody. So I think as we kind of work with these goals that we have in the external world, for me, it's been the most impactful thing is recognizing it's all an inner experience that I'm desiring. And it's like the struggle in the mind of how do I make this happen, that actually this kind of brings it back to the ether, that we don't need to know all of the steps. We need to get in touch with our inner experience and let ourselves be guided from there. And so when we're doing, you know, we're working with things that we have to do in the external world, something else that was popping in as you speaking was this concept in the East of non-action. And it's not about not doing anything. It's not about sitting on your couch and, you know, only thinking it. It's about not acting from a space of mental activity, of, you know, overthinking, of the ego mind, and allowing ourselves to center into our own stillness, from which wisdom, from which inspiration arises. So non-action can be very active in the world, but it's coming from a place of inspiration. It's more like an inspired action than I have to do this because this thing outside of me told me it needs to happen in these ways. And this is how we can connect ourselves back to the infinite wisdom of the Akash. This is how we can connect ourselves to the flow of energy that we're actually seeking, by letting go of the idea that I know all the answers, to come back to there is an infinity that I can't possibly comprehend, and there are actually infinite roads to this desired experience that I have. Let me connect to the sense, that inner feeling of that experience, and be guided from that space.
Yeah. And that's like the combination of the doing, but then also like the being with. Like so I'm being with my outcome, and I'm also doing these things to get to the outcome where you had said like also the non-doing. Like I feel like there's a very important part of that like resting cycle, and everything in nature has a resting period because it's just part of the growth cycle where you were visualizing that like wave. And of course we're going to have an ebb and a flow, and we're going to have, you know, the ups and the downs. We're going to have the challenges that are there to make us stronger. And I think it's also a little bit of a test of the that like universal energy, that like ether, that like that bigger power of also saying like how much do you want this? Like show me how much you want this. When, you know, you step
Mm-hmm.
on the Lego first thing in the morning, show me how much you want to start your day off really well. Show me how you can see what I'm offering you. Like, ooh, that poke, like, you know, right on my heel. Oh, okay, well, let me think about the reflexology of that. Let me think of, you know, how that might associate with something that might be going on in the bigger part of my body. You know, maybe I need to activate just that part of the actual foot. I think that the and even just like being with it of just like, wow, that really hurts. Oh, and then, and then like moving on into the day where it's just acknowledging that thing like right now and choosing whether you want to continue to be with that and you want to continue to keep doing that, or if you want to just have that just be a moment. And then, oh yeah, well, that sucked. And now I'm gonna, you know, just rub my foot a little bit and you know, I'll wear like an extra pair of socks or something and or you know, do this thing, or you know, maybe I have time to get some Epsom salts out where and then we can even imagine like, oh my gosh, really that stimulated some self-care that I didn't know that I had time for. Where it's that
Mm.
like, what are you being with? What are you doing? And um yeah, that, and again, it's just that empowering feeling for me anyway, of I get to make the choice. I get to, and you had said like letting go. Um, I think it is really another inspiring thought when I talk to people about, you know, they're like, oh, you're gonna fix me, or you're gonna make me get rid of this. And my conversation always begins the same way. Only you can heal you, and only you're holding on to this. So only you can let this go. I'm just a facilitator, and I've invested a lot of my own time learning information, learning techniques that I use on myself as well, to help me with my own chronic pain and my own, you know, goals in shedding the things that don't serve me anymore. And I can work with somebody that can help me understand something that will then allow me to let that go. But I think people have that wrong concept, and I guess I'm using that word kind of maybe incorrectly, but maybe it is the right concept. I don't know. But I think that when they seek help, that person is the thing that is the change. And it's always the client, it's always the person that is receiving the work, in my opinion, that is the one that's going to have to let go, is the one that's going to have to make the change. You know, what we do in 30 minutes or an hour is not necessarily the thing that is going to change your experience in life. It's how you get up and walk away. What are you going to keep doing? What are you going to be with? What are you going to let go of? What are you going to recognize that you don't have room to hold on to because you're holding on to all of the stuff you don't want? Um, and that effort, I feel like that message is sometimes really shocking to people. And I've heard you using kind of that same word and that like hesitation when like, you have to let this go. And I feel like people get really resistant of like, no, you need to make me let this go, or you need to this thing. And um, I think owning our own journey and owning our own experience in the journey is the thing that creates the infinite opportunities for people. I think when they're understanding that it's not, you know, it's not the restorative healing session, it's not the time I spend with conscious Catie, it's not the time that I spend necessarily like clocking minutes and hours on the yoga mat. It's what I do after that, and like what I'm noticing while it's happening. What am I choosing to let go of, or what am I yearning to pick up and recognize that I don't have any space for that. And like, where is this coming from inside of me to show me what still needs to be healed? And I think it's a big concept, and I think there's resistance to that concept. And I think I'm wondering your thoughts on what I said. And I promise that will be the last thing we talk about,
No,
and
I
then we'll
love it.
say
I love
goodbye.
it.
And I hope you're
As
okay
you're
with the time.
speaking, so many ideas are coming to me, and I love like the different realms that we're touching in on. But now I'm gonna like lose my train of thought. But I think what you're speaking to, or one thing that's really been prevalent for me is understanding that we're actually all just activations for each other. We are all just here to give some message that's gonna spark something in you. Like you said, it's gonna be, what do you take from this? Because I could be saying the most brilliant, ingenious words, but if you're not in a space to receive that, it's going to go in one ear out the other. So it's all about recognizing that we are the creators of our own lives. We are the creators of our own experience. And we have chosen to engage in this interaction. If this is like a counseling relationship or something where you're working with a facilitator, that this is, I'm just a reflection to you. I am just here to be some kind of activation for something that you are going to choose to pick up on, to resonate with, and then move from there. And kind of bringing it back to this visual of the wave, Like, I really love how you say, let's think about it as a vibration that we want to experience, a frequency, a vibration that we want to experience of, having more peace in our life. In this world of duality, we learn how to experience more peace through its contrast. So if we're, our desire is to experience more peace, it's really a vibration that we want to embody. It's not that like final goal. So we are vibration, we are waves. So we are going to experience the highs of, oh, so much clarity. I'm feeling that like high of peace. And then we're going to experience that, external thing that feels like it's contrast. You're going to step on the Lego, and that is where we get to have that breakthrough point of, I'm reacting to this trigger in a new way, and now it's, we can continue the wave more efficiently. But the way that I see it is, when we hit that, breaking point, are we extending our suffering in time by putting more of our mental energy on that, like what we don't want? Or are we using this as like an experience to fully feel through, and allow ourselves to stay with that energy that we're seeking more to
Yeah.
experience in our life?
I think our next forever conversation is going to be about the contrast thing. And because that just like ignited a whole bunch of thoughts in my mind. But I do feel like we need to finish up for today. And I would love to do this again because this is so inspiring for me. And I feel like it is one of the goals for the conversation, and to throw this up on YouTube, is an example of what it's like to talk to somebody that's kind of on that same vibration, that's on the same journey, and whatever the however far into, however steps they've taken into the journey, it's just this incredible experience of talking with somebody that's like, yeah, I'm going that way too. Let's go together. And I feel like the thoughts just grow in this positive way. And it's like, oh, this too, where I think people forget. Um, I think it is the value of conversation. I think it's the value of even the original concepts way back when, of a news broadcast or some kind of like passing on information, from, what's going on in town, uh, where there is this forgotten art of just celebrating, of like this intention of, we're here to grow, we're here to learn, we're here to connect our mind and our heart, and we're here to find people that are either open to that conversation or already having the conversation. And I think it's a great example of the that concept of like every emotion is going to come from love or fear. And when we're having the conversation with fear, it's really draining, because it's finite energy. And when we're having the conversation through love, it is this like self-nourishing, infinite experience where I do feel like we could talk forever about this stuff. And just, some of the things you're saying, I'm just like, write a note. I could talk about this too. I could talk about this too. And so I do hope that we connect again. And to have that conversation about contrast, I think that is such an important concept. And the way that when you had said that, I hadn't thought of this, but the very basic concept of the Chinese medicine represented by the yin and the yang, where there is the heaviness and there is the lightness, and there's a little bit of each of those in the other, to continue that momentum of that movement of chi and life, and just experiences that we're having, and energy that we will keep. And um so anyway, so not to keep talking forever about that. And so anything that you want to invite people to check out, you have a website that has information about you, and we talked about your YouTube channel. I'm just wondering if there's anything else you would like to share before we are done today.
Yeah, and I just want to like really reflect. I love that this is how we're wrapping it, is with this understanding of contrast and the like loving energy that we feel. We could just keep kind of going off, because that is what creation is. It's connecting to like the inspiration that comes. And I would, if I haven't gone through the darkest parts of my days and my shadow and my, faced some really, really incredibly challenging times, I wouldn't have opened myself, like how we're talking, like break down to break through, to these parts of myself that I can now love more deeply internally and to the world, and that are opening me to new possibilities, new everything. So yes, let's definitely connect again about like this importance of the contrast, and just it is the nature of our reality.
Yes,
And
yes.
and just for my work, yes, I have, my path has been one of taking my unique risk to follow my intuition and tap into the way that truth, the way that the universe speaks its wisdom through me, experiences its magic through my unique body. And I believe that we all have a unique expression of this magic. And that's what my work is all about, is just connecting in this field of love where the natural healing arises, where our natural wisdom comes out, because we're just being with another being who is doing their own work, who's done their own work, that I'm now not projecting an idea of you, because that's based on my limited perception. That's based on these things that I'm carrying, right? That we can actually just hold space for the like innate wisdom of ourselves to come through. And so my work is just about connecting back to our unique nature, that we have live in a reality that is so infinitely rich with potential and love. And let's do that together, like you were saying. Let's be here to evolve together. So if it resonates, just connect with me on Instagram, check out my website for my offering, which is a really intimate and powerful one-on-one container. My background is in mental health counseling, and now I do this in a spiritual context, so that we can really work with what's alive for us in this space. And yeah, I
Awesome.
look so forward. I like live for this. I live for connecting from this space and evolving together and evolving the conversation. So
Yes,
yeah, I love
very
it.
good. And the YouTube channel is Conscious Catie, and the your website is your name, Catie, CATIEFREUND .com or .org. I'm forgetting.
Dot
Is
com. Perfect.
.com? Okay, yep.
Yeah.
And then an email address. Would you want to share that, or just send people to the website? Do you have a
Connect to the sorry. Yeah. The website, also my Instagram is my name. So at Catie Freund, CATIEFREUND. And you can send me a message there, wherever.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, I'm gonna hit stop record and then we'll talk for just a moment and then we'll say our official goodbyes. Thank you so much for all of your time with this. I loved our conversation and I feel like it's a little dangerous that we're gonna continue here, but let
We'll
me
be back with more. Thank you for everyone.